Hi, I'm Claire and this is Craig.
And I am a T4 complete paraplegic, which means that I'm completely paralysed from the chest down.
We've had quite a lot of questions about how Craig gets up into this van since the seats are obviously quite high.
So we thought we'd make a quick video to show you how I do it.
And we also asked in one of our previous videos about any alternative methods that people know about how to get in other than just a standard under-vehicle lift. So we thought we'd share those with you in case any of you want to know about alternative options.
Yeah, and then talk quickly about the options that we're thinking of taking in our own van.
Since we haven't yet got any sort of lift in the van, the only way that Craig can currently get into the van is by doing a transfer, either up into one of the front seats or through the side door.
This is how I get into the front. It is a big transfer. I really have to heave myself up, so it puts a lot of strain on my shoulders. Even though it is something I can do, it's not something I'd want to be doing long term, so I don't damage my shoulders.
Once Craig's transferred into the van, then I normally get his wheelchair and lift it up into this space here, which is where we keep the wheelchair while we're driving. We just have these bungee cords that we've got here attached to the chair, and we put them through the wheels to stop the wheelchair from moving and sliding around as we're driving.
The other way I can get in is through the side door, so I'll get out that way to show you how it works.
These are just standard campervan swivel seats, not the disability specific ones, so they're not the easiest for Craig to spin around.
And because I have big feet, they can get a little bit stuck in between the seats. We chose these swivel seats because they're cheaper, smaller and lighter, and there's no electronics involved, so they are easier to install and less likely to break down.
So what other options do we have?
The most common option is an under-vehicle platform lift. The benefits of these are they're completely out the way, they're mounted underneath the van so they're taking no precious space up inside the van. I would be able to use it completely independently because it's just controlled via a remote control, and it gets me and my wheelchair both into the van at the same time.
The problem with this type of lift is that they need a lot of space to deploy. This is where we park on the driveway, and as you can see we only have the width of Craig's wheelchair before we hit the wall. Which means that there wouldn't be enough space here for a lift to actually get out. So there's not really much point us getting one of these right now because we wouldn't be able to use it when we're parked here, and Craig will just have to do a transfer anyway. And the other problem we have with this type of lift is that they can be liable to breaking down. Another option is something called a transfer plate. These can just open up next to the seat like this to make a level transfer, but the problem is if you're using one of these in a van rather than a car, you've still got to do this massive high transfer to get up to here in the first place. So we don't think it would be that useful. But you can get ones which also move up and down as well, which would be a lot better because then you can do one level transfer onto the plate, you'll then sit on it as it moves you up, and then you can do a second level transfer onto the seat. But the problem that we have with this is the fact that if Craig had transferred into the seat, his wheelchair would then just be left behind outside of the vehicle and he couldn't really use it independently. And a very similar option to the transfer plate is you can actually get your entire chair to come out of the vehicle and move up and down as well. But this time you only need to do the one transfer onto the chair, and then the chair will go back into position with you on it. But another problem with this, the same as the other one, is the fact that your chair is left behind outside of the vehicle, so independence is limited. And also both of these methods are electronic, so we don't know how reliable they are.
Originally we really liked the idea of getting a manual ramp because they're cheap, they're very reliable, there's no electronic parts, and it would get both me and my wheelchair into the van together.
In order for the ramp not to be so steep that Craig can get up it, it would have to be really long, which would then make it really big and bulky and difficult to store inside the vehicle without taking up all of the space. And you'd also need a huge amount of space around the outside of the van every time you wanted to deploy it, which again is not ideal. So the option that we really like the idea of the most is something called a super arm lift. It is basically an articulating arm which rotates outwards, and it has two straps attached to it which you can connect to your wheelchair, and it will then lift you and the wheelchair up and into the vehicle.
We really like the idea of this because it only needs to come out as far as the wheelchair, and then it will lift both me and the wheelchair into the van, and I can operate it completely independently.
The problem with this is the fact that You don't seem to be able to get it anywhere in Europe. It only seems to be available in the USA, which for us living here in the UK is obviously not an option. So those are the options that we know about so far, and we haven't yet made any decisions because we're in lockdown right now and we can't go anywhere in the van anyway, so we're not really in a rush, and we're hoping that some better options might possibly come along.
Yep, so if anyone has any other options that we haven't talked about, then please let us know. We're open to hearing any options you have.
And if you are looking for these options yourself, then I hope you found this information useful.
Yep, thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.